Hi everyone, my name is Vanessa Lua Cáceres, and today we will explore Antonio's case, a kindergarten English learner, and we will connect his case to 5 key ideas from the textbook: identity formation, deficit mindset, intersectionality, assimilation, and language acquisition. At the beginning of the school year, Antonio started kindergarten without any prior experience of a school setting and with very limited English. The first day of class, Antonio didn't line up on time when recess was over. The teacher reprimanded him in front of the other kindergarten classes on the playground, and Antonio looked confused, so the bilingual paraprofessional tried to step in and translate, but the teacher refused, saying translation wasn't necessary because Antonio understood some English based on what he observed inside the classroom. Later that day, Antonio told the paraprofessional he didn't understood what the teacher said before. And when the paraprofessional told this to the teacher brushed it off, saying that Antonio was just avoiding responsibility. This wasn't a one-time thing. Throughout the year, the teacher keeps seeing Antonio's behavior as a lack of effort instead of understanding it as a mix of language barriers and the difficulty of adjusting to school for the first time. Academically, Antonio had impressive communication skills in Spanish. He spoke with a level of maturity that was advanced for his age. While his English was limited, his proficiency in Spanish allowed him to articulate ideas in a way that demonstrated his intelligence and potential. At the beginning of the school year, Antonio displayed a strong sense of self-esteem and remarkable communication skills, both socially and academically. His creativity, especially through drawing, was impressive. He was enthusiastic about learning and engaged with his peers, particularly when he felt comfortable. This positive behavior was rooted in his resilience and linguistic identity, as he proudly used his Spanish language skills as part of his sense of self. However, as the year progressed, the pressure of language acquisition and possible struggles at home began to impact Antonio's sense of identity. He started to disengage, shifting from a confident and motivated student to one who saw himself as trouble. This change wasn't just a reflection of his language struggles, it was also influenced by how he was being perceived by the teacher. As the teacher focused more on his challenges with English, Antonio started to internalize the perception that his worth and abilities were defined by his English language skills. This shift led him to view himself through a new lens, one that emphasized his perceived failures rather than his strengths. Over time, he began to struggle with motivation and respect for authority. Even when working with the paraprofessional in Spanish, Antonio showed less interest in learning. His initial sense of self, grounded in his linguistic and cultural identity, seemed to diminish as his English language abilities were the main focus with his interactions at school. This change in Antonio's sense of self highlights how important it is to nurture students' identities, including their linguistic and cultural backgrounds. When a student's language proficiency is viewed as the main indicator of their worth, it can have profound effects on their identity and motivation. Antonio's experience demonstrates how identity formation is a complex process influenced by how the student and others perceive and value their strengths. Now, the teacher perspective to Antonio's challenges reflects a deficit mindset. Instead of recognizing Antonio's language barriers and limited experience as areas where he needed support, the teacher focused only on his weaknesses. There was a fixation on fixing Antonio's English proficiency, treating it as if something was inherently wrong with him for not speaking English fluently. The teacher failed to provide the necessary resources to help Antonio succeed. Instead, the responsibility for Antonio's learning was placed entirely on him, as if it were his fault, as if it was his fault for not understanding English. The teacher did not acknowledge the strength Antonio's brought to the classroom, such as his resilience, creativity, and advanced communication skills in Spanish. In Antonio's case, the teacher focused solely on his language proficiency and failed to consider how challenges in his personal life might have been influencing his behavior in school. Antonio's older brother had special needs, which could have been affecting Antonio's emotional well-being, but this wasn't taken into account. Instead, his behavior was attributed solely to his limited English skills. This approach, which reduces a student identity to just their language proficiency, ignores the intersectionality of their experiences. It is essential to look at the student as a whole, understanding that the personal circumstances, including family dynamics, can play a significant role in their behavior and learning. Teachers must move beyond seeing English learners as a problem to fix and recognize that their challenges may stem from multiple aspects of their lives. It is also crucial to acknowledge and nurture their strengths, which can be a powerful tool for learning and growth. The teacher's insistence on assimilating without utilizing the resources available to support the student is a problem that can easily be addressed. However, we often see teachers view these resources as time-consuming and not recognizing how crucial they are for student success. It is not an extra task. It is about providing the proper support to students in order for them to thrive. When we don't provide this, we risk alienating them further. Forcing English learners to assimilate into the American culture is not only dehumanizing, but also erases the cultural identity, which can have lasting impact. This approach creates a harmful ripple effect in the classroom, where the students from similar backgrounds might feel the pressure to suppress their home language and culture. Especially in a kindergarten classroom, this is particularly damaging as it is the first experience in the education system and they are learning early on that success means abandoning part of who they are. This teaches them that their culture is something to be ashamed of, undermining their self-worth and sense of belonging. Before reading the chapter on language acquisition from this class, I was eager to explore the struggles of language learners and understand the historic linguistic oppression in the US, but I was really disappointed when I noticed that the chapter main focus were theories, language acquisition models, and bilingual education programs. The chapter felt almost like an instructional manual for teaching language acquisition, but it didn't touch on the systemic issues that affect English learners. What was missing was the historical perspective, something that we saw in other chapters. For example, when we discussed about African Americans, the chapter provided a timeline of historic oppression. And for Hispanic Americans, it talked about immigration patterns and deportations. But when it came to English learners, the chapter didn't address the linguistic oppression in the US or provided a timeline of English-only policies that had affected the students and likely continue to influence educators like Antonio's teacher. The chapter and Antonio's teacher are focusing too heavily on language acquisition without recognizing the broader intersectionality and lived experiences of English learners. Just as Antonio's teacher is viewing him through the narrow lens of language deficiency, the textbook similarly reduces English learners' struggle to just the process of learning English, overlooking the cultural, historical, and social challenges that they face. This reinforces a deficit mindset where the student is seen as a problem to be fixed rather than a complex individual with a full range of experiences and strengths. The connection between the teacher's perspective and the textbook approach to language acquisition is just a reflection of a much larger systematic issue in the education system. It is not just one teacher failing to provide the accurate resources or one editor failing to address certain concerns, but it is part of a broader, often overlooked pattern in how we treat English learners. These perspectives ignore the historical and ongoing challenges faced by these students and are often neglected in educational materials and practices. This issue is embedded in the system, and addressing it requires a much deeper reflection and change, not just fixing isolated problems. As future educators, we hold the responsibility to challenge these biases and push for change. Every student deserves to have their unique experiences and struggles acknowledged, not just as part of their identity, but as an opportunity for growth. As you move forward in your careers, think about how your actions, both in and out of the classroom, can create a more inclusive and understanding environment for all students, especially those who have been marginalized. What steps will you take to ensure every voice is heard and every student has the opportunity to thrive? The impact we have on our students is more than just academic. It shapes their future, their confidence, and their sense of belonging. So let's start making that change today.